You see them everywhere, right? On menus, on posters, maybe flashing on a screen for a split second. Those little black and white squares. And let's be honest, they look kinda dumb, almost comically low-tech, like something from a different decade. But today, we're gonna peel back the layers on that little code, because there is so much more going on than you think. Let's get into it.
Because here's the big puzzle we're going to try and solve. What if that very thing that makes QR codes feel so simple, so dated, is actually the secret to why they're so powerful, so secure, and yeah, so impossible to get rid of?
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at how this thing went from a factory floor to basically running our lives. Then we'll uncover its surprising security superpowers. After that, we're going to dig into all the frustrating 90s-era baggage it's carrying, look at some really clever fixes, and finally, answer the biggest question of all. How did this imperfect tech end up winning?
So, first up, the code hiding in plain sight. This thing was actually born back in 1994, believe it or not. It was designed for Toyota just to track car parts in their factories. And from there, it just exploded. Now it's pretty much the go-to for connecting anything physical to the digital world.
Okay, now for what might be the most counterintuitive part of this whole story. Security in simplicity. This is where the QR code's clunky, low-tech vibe turns out to be its hidden genius.
So think about it this way. You get a link in an email, right? If the server behind that link gets hacked, the bad guys can change where it goes without you ever knowing. But a QR code printed on a poster? It's literally set in stone. Once that ink is on the paper, the information it holds can't be changed. That static, uneditable nature is a huge security feature that we totally take for granted.
So your security check becomes this really simple two-part process. First, you just ask yourself, hey, do I trust the restaurant or the city or whoever printed this thing? And second, does my phone give me the green light that the website itself is secure? In a lot of cases, that's a much, much stronger guarantee than just blindly clicking a link you got online.
So that physical permanence is a massive plus. But, and this is a big but, that same design, completely frozen in time from 1994, is also its single biggest flaw. And that brings us to part 3, a design stuck in the 90s. The engineering that made it so tough back then is causing some real headaches today.
The thing is, this code was fundamentally over-engineered for a world that just doesn't exist anymore. You know those big squares in the corners? They were designed for fuzzy printers and pretty basic cameras from the mid-90s. Even its error correction, which is this system called Reed-Solomon, was built to handle like grease smudges and scratches on a factory floor. It's incredibly robust, but the amazing cameras in our pockets today could handle something way denser and more efficient. We're basically paying a penalty for design that's being extra cautious for technology we left behind decades ago.
And all that over-engineering leads to this really annoying thing called the breakpoint problem. Look at this. If you have a nice, short URL, you get a clean, simple-looking QR code. It's low density, super easy for any camera to scan in a heartbeat. This is the dream.
But watch what happens. Add just a few more characters, like those tracking tags that marketing teams love to use, and bam, the QR code standard has these fixed sizes, or versions. And if you cross a certain character limit, it's forced to jump up to the next version, and it instantly becomes way more dense and complicated. All of a sudden, it's this blurry mess that's nearly impossible to scan from far away.
And here's the kicker, where the tech problem crashes right into human behavior. A marketer adds their tracking tags, a designer just pastes the link into a generator, and literally nobody stops to check if they just crossed one of those invisible lines and made their code 10 times harder to use. It happens constantly.
So are we just stuck with this forever? Not at all. Which brings us to the really cool part, the brilliant, obvious fixes. It turns out there are some super elegant solutions that could fix most of this mess without having to start from scratch.
Okay, check this out. It's an idea called lexicon compression. The easiest way to think about it is like text shortcuts on your phone, where you type OMW and it just knows you mean on my way. Imagine if every QR reader just had a tiny dictionary built in. It would know a special symbol means HTTPS, or another one means .com. The code wouldn't have to spell it all out, it would just use the shortcut. Your phone would see it, make the swap instantly, and you wouldn't notice a thing.
The effect would be massive. We're talking about shrinking the data for a normal marketing link by 30, maybe even 40%. That would basically solve the whole breakpoint problem overnight, keeping the codes nice and simple. And all it takes is a software update. Which, of course, leads to the final billion-dollar question, why the QR code won? If it's so flawed and the fixes are so obvious, why are we all still using the 1994 model?
Well, the answer comes down to the unbelievable power of just being good enough. There's this concept called the installed base moat, and it's simple, really. There are billions with a B of phones, apps, and scanners out there in the world that already speak the current QR code language. Its value doesn't come from being perfect. Its value comes from the fact that everybody already has it. Any new, better technology has to somehow convince billions of people to switch, and that's almost impossible.
You know, the best analogy for this is the QWERTY keyboard. It is not the most efficient layout for typing, not even close, but it was first, we all learned on it, and now it's just the standard. The QR code is the QWERTY of 2D barcodes. It's not perfect, but it's absolutely, undeniably dominant.
So we're left with this really fascinating question to think about. This little code has become the essential bridge between our physical and digital lives. But what happens when someone designs a better, faster, stronger bridge, but billions of us are already used to taking the old, familiar, good enough one every single day? That's the challenge. And that, right there, is the hidden genius of the QR code.